2021. It is the fifth film in Sony's Spider-Man universe, SSU, and the third and final film in the Venom trilogy. The film stars Tom Hardy as Eddie Brock and Venom, alongside Chiwetel Ejiofor, Juno Temple, Rhys Ifans, Stephen Graham, Peggy Lou, and Alana Ubach in supporting roles. In the film, Eddie and Venom are on the run from both of their worlds. Hardy revealed in August 2018 that he was signed on to appear in a third Venom film. And Sony Pictures began development by December 2021 after the second film was released. Marcel and Hardy were writing the script by June 2022. And Marcel was set to make her directorial debut with the film that October. New cast members, including Ejiofor and Temple, joined in mid-2023, and filming began at the end of June 2023 in Spain. Production was halted the next month due to the 2023 SAG-AFTRA strike, and resumed that November after the strike ended. The film was completed by the end of February 2024, and its title was revealed a month later. Venom: The Last Dance premiered at the Regal Times Square Theater in New York City on October 21st, 2024, and was released in the United States on October 25. The film received mixed reviews from critics, with criticism aimed at its convoluted story while Hardy's performance. The action sequences and visual effects were praised. Despite being the lowest-grossing film in the trilogy, it was still a box office success, grossing for $178.9 million worldwide. Plot: after being transported to Earth 616 by Doctor Strange's spell, Eddie Brock and the Venom symbiote are drunk in a bar in Mexico, as the bartender fills them in about Thanos and the Infinity Stones. They are forced back to their home universe on Earth 688. To the same bar, be still on the run after their recent battle with Carnage. The apparent murder of Patrick Mulligan makes international headlines, with Eddie being named the prime suspect, forcing him to set out to New York City and attempt to clear his name. But, unbeknownst to them, they leave a bit of venom at the bar, unbeknownst to either of them. A creature known as a xenophage has begun tracking Eddie and Venom. The recent events catch the attention of Rex Strickland, a soldier who oversees Imperium, a government operation at the site of the soon-to-be decommissioned Area 51 for the capture and study of other symbiotes that have fallen to Earth. Mulligan, revealed to have survived his encounter with Carnage, is captured after being left for dead by another symbiote who eluded Strickland's soldiers. He is bonded with one of many contained symbiotes and questioned by Imperium researchers Dr. Teddy Payne and Sadie Christmas to learn about the symbiote's purpose on Earth before Strickland is ordered to bring Venom down while attaching themselves to the side of an airplane bound for New York City. Eddie and Venom are attacked by the xenophage tracking them and are forced to drop off into the Nevada desert. Venom explains to Eddie that xenophages were unleashed into the universe by Null, the creator of the symbiotes, to retrieve a codex, which is forged when a symbiote resurrects its host. This can freak Null from the prison the symbiotes trapped him in long ago. Because Venom revived Eddie once before, they now carry a codex, which the xenophage has tracked to Earth after being ambushed by Strickland and his team while barely escaping from them and the xenophage. Eddie meets Martin Moon and his family of traveling hippies and alien enthusiasts, who offer him a free ride to Las Vegas on their way to Area 51. Meanwhile, Mulligan's new symbiote informs Strickland of Null's intentions for the codex, which can only be destroyed if either Eddie or Venom dies. Arriving in Las Vegas, Eddie and Venom run into Mrs. Chen at a casino, and Venom shares a dance with her. before being ambushed by the Xenophage again. Strickland's team arrives, separates Venom from Eddie, and takes them to Area 51, where Eddie reunites with Mulligan. Kasady frees Venom, who ray bonds with Eddie after Strickland shoots him. This attracts the Xenophage to the base, and Mulligan is killed in battle. Venom has the other confined symbiotes released, which bond with Kasady and other hosts to fight off the Xenophage, who has signaled to Knull that the Codex has been found. Knull sends more Xenophages through portals to Earth, overwhelming the symbiotes. Realizing he must sacrifice himself to destroy the Codex and save the universe, Venom merges with the Xenophages, leads them into acid tanks, and bids Eddie farewell, before ejecting him as a mortally wounded Strickland sets off his grenades to destroy them. Teddy bonds with a symbiote to save Kasady from the explosion while Eddie falls unconscious. As the base burns, Eddie later wakes up in a hospital, where a military official informs him that his actions with Venom at Area 51 have earned him an expungement, under the condition of keeping the events that transpired a secret. Arriving in New York City, Eddie gazes at the Statue of Liberty while remembering Venom in a mid-credits scene. Knull declares that the universe is no longer safe from him now, that Venom has fallen. In a post-credits scene, the bartender who was taken into custody by Strickland shortly after Eddie left for New York escapes the burned remains of Area 51. Nearby, a black cockroach crawls out of the rubble next to a broken vial that previously contained a sample of the Venom symbiote. Tom Hardy reprises his role as Eddie Brock and Venom. Tom Hardy as Eddie Brock, Venom, an investigative journalist who is the host of Venom, an alien symbiote that imbues him with superhuman abilities. 5 Chiwetel Ejiofor as General Rex Strickland, a commander for Imperium who is tracking Eddie and trying to capture Venom. 6 Production developed and pre-production star Tom Hardy stated in August 2018 that he had signed on to star in 3 Venom films. 5 in September 2021. Hardy noted that the producers would have to continue to develop Sony's Spider-Man universe, SSU in future films, but said they were also interested in crossing over with the Marvel Cinematic Universe MCU more. 20. Venom. Let There Be Carnage 2021 director Andy Serkis expressed interest in returning to direct another Venom film. 21 and felt there was more to explore with Venom in future films before the character could meet Spider-Man in a future crossover film. 22 including further exploration of the Ravencroft Institute and other potential villains being held there. 21 in October. Tom Holland said he and producer Amy Pascal had discussed him potentially reprising his MCU role as Peter Parker, Spider-Man in future Venom sequels, after he made a cameo appearance in Let There Be Carnage via footage from the MCU film Spider-Man No Way Home 2021. 23 Neither Holland nor his character appeared in the finished film, despite Adam B. very later reporting in December 2020 for that, according to one Sony source. The Walt Disney Company never precluded Sony from using Holland for their films, never happening out to a feeling within the studio that audiences wouldn't accept Holland's version of Spider-Man appearing in non-MCU films, especially after the releases of No Way Home and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness 2022, which established the definitive boundaries of the MCU's multiverse. 20 for that December. Pascal said they were in the planning stages of Venom 3. 25 Sony Pictures confirmed the film was in development at Cinemakin in April 2022. 26 in June. Hardy revealed that Kelly Marceau was writing the screenplay after previously working on the prior Venom films and that he was co-writing the story with her. 27. Hardy was set to be paid $20 million for his involvement. 28 Circus was unable to return as director due to his commitments to Animal Farm, which he had delayed to work on Let There Be Carnage. 29 but ultimately portrayed the character Knull in the film. 14 Marcel signed on in October to make her directorial debut with the film, which was expected to conclude the Venom trilogy. 30 she was also set to produce the film alongside Avi Arad, Matt Tolmach, Pascal, Hutch Parker, and Hardy. 30 all doing so through their respective production companies Arad Productions, Matt Tolmach Productions, Pascal Pictures, Hutch Parker Entertainment, and Hardy's son Ann Baker. Columbia Pictures also produces in association with Marvel Entertainment. 31 Hardy confirmed in February 2023 that pre-production work had begun. 32 Juno Temple entered negotiations to join the cast in an undisclosed lead role in April. 33 the next month. Filming was expected to begin in June in London. 30 for 35 and Chiwetel Ejiofor was cast as Rex Strickland. 6:36 when Temple was confirmed to have been cast. 36 in June. The film was set for release in October 2024. 37 the film features Knull, the king in black of the symbiotes who was introduced to the source material in 2018. The filmmakers were always kept aware of the character, but decided they had to lay the foundations for Venom's character and his relationship with Eddie, Brock, before featuring the Marvel supervillain. As such, they looked for inspiration from the Venom comic books by David Michelinie, Todd McFarlane, Donny Cates, and Ryan Stegman, the latter to being Knull's creators, leading Sony to hire them for an advisory relationship and allowing at least Cates to read the screenplay. Cates and Stegman expected monetary compensation for the inclusion of Knull. 38 filming principal photography began on June 26, 2023, at Los Mateos in Cartagena, Spain, as well as at the Cal Blanc Regional Park. 3940 under the working title, Orwell. 41 Fabian Wagner serves as the cinematographer after previously serving as an additional cinematographer on Let There Be Carnage. 34. The start of the 2023 SAG after a strike in mid-July 2023 resulted in filming being halted. 40 later that month, the film was set to release on July 12, 2024. 43 when the actors' strike ended in early November 2023. Sony delayed the film to release on November 8, 2024. Filling the November 2024 date that the studio had previously reserved for an untitled Marvel film. Production was preparing to resume at that time. 40 for filming resumed on November 16th. 45 in February 2024, Clark Bacco joined the cast in an undisclosed role. 11 and Temple said at the end of the month that filming was nearly completed. 46 post-production in March 2024. The film was titled Venom, The Last Dance, and its release date was moved forward to October 25th, 2024. 47 the first teaser trailer, released in June. CONFIR MED Peggy Lou and Stephen Graham were reprising their respective roles as Mrs. Chen and Patrick Mulligan from prior Venom films, as well as the castings of Rhys Ifans, Alana Ubach, and Cristo Fernandez. 7-10-9 Ifans previously portrayed Kurt Connors, Lizard in Sony's The Amazing Spider-Man 2012 and No Way Home, while Fernandez appeared in No Way Home as a bartender who interacts with Brock after he is transported to the MCU via the multiverse. Jermaine Lussier at IO9 questioned if the appearances of Ifans and Ejiofor, who played Carl Mordo in the MCU, were less concerned about continuity with the MCU and were instead commentary on the multiverse. rather than being connected to their prior roles. 10 Molly Edwards of Total Film was also confused by the reference to the mid-credits scene of No Way Home in the trailer, since the Venom films are set in a separate universe from the MCU. 48 John Moffat and Aaron Borland serve as the visual effects supervisors, while Greg Baxter is the visual effects producer. Visual effects are provided by Industrial Light and Magic Elm D&EG Digital Domain, Rodeo FX, and Territory Studio, while the Third Floor, Inc., Torchlight, and Host provided the pre-visualization and post-visualization work. 49 Mark Sanger edited the film, which was completed at the Cary Grant Theater at the Sony Pictures Studios lot in early October 2024. 50 Music main article, Venom, The Last Dance soundtrack by August 2024. Dan Deacon composed the score for the film. 51 Release at the Theatricalen. The Last Dance held its world premiere at the Regal Times Square Theater in New York City on October 21, 2024. 52 and was theatrically released by Sony Pictures Releasing in the United States on October 25th in IMAX and other premium large formats PLFs. 47. The film was originally expected to be released in October 2024, before it was given a release date of July 12, 2024, when Sony adjusted their release schedule due to the SAG-AFTRA strike. 37:43 after the strike ended, the film's release was delayed to November 8, 2024. 44 before it was moved forward and returned to the October 2024 time frame. 47 Home Media film was released on digital download on December 10th, 2024, and it was released on DVD, Blu-ray, and 4K UHD on January 21st, 2025 by Sony Pictures Home Entertainment. 53:54. Sony signed deals with Netflix and Disney in April 2021 for the rights to their 2022 to 2026 film slate, following the film's theatrical and home media windows. 55:56 Netflix signed for exclusive pay one-window streaming rights, which is typically an 18-month window and included future Venom films following Venom, Let There Be Carnage. 55 Disney signed for pay-to-window rights for the films, which would be streamed on Disney Plus and Hulu as well as broadcast on Disney's linear television networks. 56:57 reception box office Venom. The Last Dance grossed $139.8 million in the United States and Canada and $339.2 million in other territories, for a worldwide total of $478.9 million, 2-4 in the United States and Canada. Venom, The Last Dance was released alongside Conclave and was projected to gross around $65 million from 125 theaters in its opening weekend. The film made $20 million on its first day, including $8.5 million from Thursday night previews. 58 it went on to debut to $51 million, finishing in first but marking the lowest opening of the series. Deadline Hollywood attributed the underperformance to the ongoing Yankees-Dodgers World Series and superhero genre fatigue. 59 nevertheless. The film's international box office gross would help offset its weaker performance at the North American box office. 60 The film then made $26.1 million in its second weekend, dropping 49% from its first weekend. 61 and $16.2 million in its third weekend, dropping another 37%. Retaining the top spot for 3 consecutive weeks. 60 to The Last Dance was finally dethroned in its fourth weekend. making $7.3 million and finishing second behind newcomer Red One. 63 critical response in the review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes. 40% of 219 critics' reviews are positive with an average rating of 4.7/10. The website's consensus reads, "The always watchable Tom Hardy injects ample charisma into Venom. The Last Dance, but the offering buckles under its convoluted tonal ambitions." 64 Metacritic, which uses a weighted average, assigned the film a score of 41 out of 100, based on 47 critics, indicating mixed or average reviews. 65 audiences polled by CinemaScore gave the film an average grade of B on an A+ to F scale, the lowest of the trilogy, while those surveyed by PostTrack gave it a 73% overall positive score, with 55% saying they would definitely recommend it. 59. Christy Lemire of RogerEbert.com gave the film 1.5 out of 4 stars, writing, "When it leans hard into the inherent absurdity of its wacky, mismatched buddy antics, Venom: The Last Dance can be a total blast. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen nearly as often as it should." 66. The Daily Telegraph's Robbie Collin gave it 1 out of 5 stars, calling it a yammeringly moronic, teenage boy-pandering eyesore of the old school, with little to offer any viewer whose age or counting ability exceeds the low 20s. He concluded, "As Last Dances go, it's the Macarena in film form." 67. Kevin Marr of The Times also gave it 1 out of 5 stars, saying, "It's hugely dispiriting to watch Hardy sink so low from the elegant character work of Stewart, A Life Backwards, and Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy to a blank-eyed Marvel meathead, whose greatest line is, 'We've got to get the codex as far away as possible.'" 68. Alcy Rengifo of Entertainment Voice wrote, "Venom as a franchise works as a comic book cousin of Lethal Weapon, or any other popular series featuring an entertaining, mismatched duo." 69. Amy Nicholson of the New York Times said, "Honestly, I'd rather watch Eddie and Venom dicker over pizza toppings than team up for something as banal as saving the planet." 70. Jake Cole of Slant Magazine gave the film 3 out of 4 stars, writing, "As the film progresses, it consistently escalates the stakes and scale of its action, which doesn't devolve into incomprehensible CG murk as it hurtles toward the climax." 71. The Independent's Clarice Lowry wrote, "It's hard to say how these films will be remembered in the grand scheme of comic book history. But with The Last Dance, we can at least be reminded that sometimes they actually manage to have fun with these things," and gave it 3 out of 5 stars. 70. To Kelly Marcel, born the 10th of January 1974, is an English filmmaker and former actress. After working as a child actor in the United Kingdom, Marcel had her breakout as a screenwriter in Hollywood when her script for Saving Mr. Banks made the 2011 Blacklist and was quickly acquired by Disney, which released the film in 2013. She is also known for writing the 2015 film adaptation of E.L. James' 50 Shades of Grey, and the Sony Spider-Man universe film Venom 2018, as well as its sequels Venom: Let There Be Carnage 2021 and Venom: The Last Dance 2024, the latter of which she directed in her directorial debut. Marcel also created and served as executive producer of the television series Tear on Nova 2011 and The Changeling 2023, for which she was also the showrunner and is credited with writing 8 episodes. Early life Marcel was born in London, England, and studied English literature at the University of Exeter. Her father is filmmaker Terry Marcel, and she has a sister, actress Rosie Marcel. Career child acting career 1989 to 2003, Marcel worked as a child actor in the United Kingdom, playing minor roles in television series such as The Bill, Holby City, and Casualty. 2. She also had a largely non-speaking role as young Vera in the 1990 for television film adaptation of A Dark Adapted Eye. Early work as screenwriter 2008 to 2011, Marcel eventually quit acting to pursue writing while working part-time in Prime Time Video, a video rental shop in Battersea, London. Around the corner from the video shop was the Latchmere pub, where Tom Hardy hosted an acting workshop. Marcel and Hardy became friends, and he subsequently brought Marcel in to do uncredited rewrites on his 2008 film Bronson, directed by Nicholas Winding Refn. After it ran into trouble, one of Hardy's tattoos says "Scribe" in tribute to Marcel. 3. While working at the video shop, she wrote a script for a TV show called Gondwana and Highway. She wrote it for her father, who had been telling her about the supercontinent Gondwana land and reading a Stephen Hawking book on time travel. Marcel, who had just seen Al Gore's 2006 global warming documentary An Inconvenient Truth, combined these 3 influences into the script. Gondwana and Highway was almost picked up by Carnival Films, the UK production company behind Downton Abbey, when producer Aaron Kaplan persuaded Marcel to bring the show to America instead, where it became the TV series Terra Nova. For she sold a script about death row titled Westbridge to Showtime. She worked on the script with director Thomas Schlam, though the script went unmade. It became a calling card for Marcel in Hollywood, for Hollywood breakthrough 2011 to 2013 after her 2-week trip to Los Angeles and her decision not to continue working on Terra Nova. Marcel returned to the London video shop. She was approached by Ruby Films' Alison Owen to work on a project about Mary Poppins author P.L. Travers and her relationship with Walt Disney for BBC Films, based on an earlier draft by Sue Smith. 5. The script, Saving Mr. Banks, landed on the 2011 blacklist and was acquired by Disney. 6. The film was released in 2013. Directed by John Lee Hancock, and starring Tom Hanks as Walt Disney and Emma Thompson as P.L. Travers. Marcel and Smith shared writing credit. 7. Marcel was nominated for Outstanding Debut by a British Writer, Director, or Producer at the 67th Annual BAFTA Awards. 8. Box office success as screenwriter to a 1 for 2-0 to 1. Marcel was hired in 2012 to adapt L. James' best-selling erotic novel 50 Shades of Grey, with Sam Taylor Johnson directing. After Universal Pictures and Focus Features won the rights to the 50 Shades trilogy for $5 million in a bidding war. 9. Though the film was financially successful, grossing $571.1 million worldwide on a $40 million budget and spawning 2 sequels. Both Marcel and Johnson expressed unhappiness with the finished film, with Marcel describing it as painful to watch. 10. Of particular issue was James' insistence that the film preserve original dialogue in its entirety, and threatening to boycott the film if the dialogue was rewritten. 11. She was one of the writers on Sony's Venom adaptation, alongside Scott Rosenberg and Jeff Pinkner, directed by Ruben Fleischer. The film stars Marcel's friend and frequent collaborator Tom Hardy in the title role. 12. She returned to write the scripts for Venom's first and second sequels, Venom, Let There Be Carnage 2021, and Venom, The Last Dance 2024, receiving sole writing credit on both films. 13. The first 3 Venom films were both big successes at the box office, and have been by far the most financially successful of all the live-action films. In the Sony Spider-Man universe SSU. 14 success as TV and film writer, creator, showrunner, and director 2022 present in October 2022. It was announced that Marcel would be making her directorial debut in 2024 with Venom: The Last Dance, in addition to writing and producing the film. 1516 The Last Dance marks the third movie in Sony's Venom trilogy, all of which have been written or co-written by Marcel Dott in September 2023. The Changeling premiered on Apple TV Plus with Marcel at the show's helm as its creator, showrunner, and the credited writer for all 8 episodes in the first season. Marcel worked in close, intense collaboration with author Victor Lavallee in adapting his award-winning 2017 novel, The Changeling, into a television show with the same name for Apple TV Plus. That premiered in October 2023. When asked about this project, Marcel stated, "I think part of being faithful to a novel whilst also expanding it for TV is finding a miraculous partner like Victor Lavallee who will come along on the journey with you," adding that Lavallee was on set every day and encouraged her to experiment with his story. Lavallee echoed similar comments about his admiration for Marcel. "The best kind of leader says, 'All of you have power and you come to me and I will take every good thing, every good idea you have and run with it.'" And Kelly was such a model of that kind of confidence. I felt very honored. 17 The show was well received by critics, with Alison Picuro of TV Guide writing that anyone willing to go along for the ride is in for an enchanting storybook of a series, one of the year's most singular offerings. Saving Mr. Banks is a 2013 biographical drama film directed by John Lee Hancock and written by Kelly Marcel and Sue Smith, centered on the development of the 1964 film Mary Poppins. The film stars Emma Thompson as book author P.L. Travers and Tom Hanks as film producer Walt Disney, with supporting performances by Paul Giamatti, Jason Schwartzman, Bradley Whitford, Colin Farrell, Ruth Wilson, and B.J. Novak, deriving its title from the father in Travers' story. Saving Mr. Banks depicts the author's tragic childhood in rural Queensland in 1906, and the 2 weeks of meetings during 1961 in Los Angeles, during which Disney attempts to obtain the film rights to her novels. 6 Essential Media Entertainment and BBC Films initially developed Saving Mr. Banks as an independent production until 2011, when producer Alison Owen approached Walt Disney Pictures for permission to use copyrighted elements. The film's subject matter piqued Disney's interest, leading the studio to acquire the screenplay and produce the film. 7 Principal photography commenced the following year in September before wrapping in November 2012. The film was shot almost entirely in the Southern California area, primarily at the Walt Disney Studios in Burbank, where a majority of the film's narrative takes place. 8-9. Saving Mr. Banks premiered at the BFI London Film Festival on October 20th, 2013, and was distributed theatrically by Walt Disney Studios Motion Pictures that same year in the United Kingdom on November 29th and in North America on December 13th. The film was named one of the 10 best films of 2013 by the National Board of Review and the American Film Institute, and was also commercially successful, grossing over $117 million at the worldwide box office. Thompson's performance garnered BAFTA, Golden Globe, and Screen Actors Guild nominations for Best Actress, while composer Thomas Newman earned an Academy Award nomination for Best Original Score. Plot: in London 1961, Agent Diarmuid Russell urges financially strapped author Pamela P.L. Travers to travel to Los Angeles and meet with Walt Disney, who has pursued the film rights to her Mary Poppins stories for 20 years, after having promised his daughters to produce a film based on the books. Travers has steadfastly resisted Disney's efforts, fearing what he will do to her character. Having written nothing new and her book royalties dried up, she risks losing her house. Russell reminds her that Disney has agreed to two major stipulations: no animation and unprecedented script approval before she finally agrees to go. Flashbacks depict Travers' difficult childhood in Allora, Queensland, Australia in 1906, which became the inspiration for much of Mary Poppins. Travers idolized her loving, imaginative father, Travers Robert Goff, but his chronic alcoholism resulted in his repeated dismissals, strained her parents' marriage, and caused her distressed mother's attempted suicide. Goff died from tuberculosis when Travers was 8 years old. Prior to his death, her mother's stern, practical sister came to live with the family and later served as Travers' main inspiration for the Mary Poppins character Dot in Los Angeles. Travers is shocked by the city's nature and the overly perky inhabitants, personified by her friendly limousine driver, Ralph, at the Walt Disney Studios in Burbank. Travers meets the creative team who are developing Mary Poppins for the screen. Screenwriter Don Grotti and songwriters Richard and Robert Sherman. She finds their presumptions and casual manners highly improper, a view that she also holds of the jocular Disney. Travers' working relationship with Disney and his team is difficult from the outset, with her insistence that Mary Poppins is the enemy of sentiment and whimsy. Disney and his people are puzzled by Travers' disdain for whimsy. Given the nature of the Mary Poppins story, as well as Travers' own rich imagination, she particularly objects to how the character George Banks, the children's estranged father, is depicted, insisting that he is neither cold nor cruel. Gradually, the team grasp how deeply personal the Mary Poppins stories are to Travers and how many of the characters were inspired by her past. The team acknowledges that Travers has valid criticisms and make changes, although she becomes increasingly disengaged as painful childhood memories resurface. Seeking to understand what troubles her, Disney invites Travers to Disneyland, which, along with her developing friendship with Ralph, the creative team's revisions to the George Banks character, the addition of a new song and a different ending, help dissolve Travers' opposition. Her creativity reawakens, and she begins collaborating with the team. Soon afterward, however, Travers discovers an animation sequence which has dancing penguins. In it has been added without her permission. Travers confronts Disney over this and returns to London in a huff. Without signing the agreement, Disney learns that P.L. Travers is a pen name, taken from Travers' father's given name. Her real name is Helen Goff, and she is Australian, not British. This gives Disney new insight into Travers, and he follows her to London, arriving unexpectedly at her home. Disney shares his own less-than-ideal childhood but stresses the healing value of his art. He urges Travers not to let deeply rooted past disappointments dictate the present. That night, after Disney has left, Travers finally relents and grants the film rights to him. 3 years later, in 1964, Travers has begun writing another Mary Poppins story. While the film Mary Poppins itself is to have its world premiere at Grauman's Chinese Theater in Hollywood, Disney has not invited Travers, fearing how she might react with the press watching. Prompted by Russell, Travers shows up unannounced at Disney's office. He reluctantly issues her an invitation. Initially, she watches Mary Poppins with a lack, of enthusiasm, particularly with the animated penguins. Travers gradually warms to the rest of the film, however, becoming deeply moved by the depiction of George Banks' personal crisis and redemption. Cast Emma Thompson as Pamela P.L. Travers' birth name Helen Goff, author of Mary Poppins Annie Rose Buckley as 7-year-old Helen, also referred to as Ginty Tom Hanks as Walt Disney. The founder of the Walt Disney Company, Nickel Farrell, as Travers' Robert Goff, Helen's loving but self-destructive father, on whom the Mr. Banks character is besieged Ruth Wilson as Margaret Goff. Helen's mother Paul Giamatti as Ralph. Travers' chauffeur Bradley Whitford as Don Grotti. Co-writer of the screenplay for Mary Poppins Jason Schwartzman as Richard M. Sherman. Composer and lyricist who wrote Mary Poppins songs, Jane Novak as Robert B. Sherman. Composer and lyricist who co-wrote the film's songs with his brother Richard Cathy. Baker as Tommy, Disney's executive assistant Mulaney Paxson as Dolly. Disney's secretary Rachel Griffiths as Helen Ellie Moorhead, Helen's hard-hearted maternal aunt, who serves as the model for Mary Poppins Ronan Vibert as Dyer Mewid Russell. Travers' publisher Krister Kyer as Dick Van Dyke, uncredited Victoria Summer as Julie Andrews. Uncredited credits adapted from the New York Times. 10 production. L. Travers in 1920 to development in 2002. Australian producer Ian Colley produced. A documentary film on P.L. Travers titled The Shadow of Mary Poppins. During the documentary's production, Colley noticed that there was an obvious biopic there and convinced Essential Media and Entertainment to develop a feature film. With Sue Smith writing the screenplay, 11, the project attracted the attention of BBC Films, which decided to finance the project, and Ruby Films' Alison Owen, who subsequently hired Kelly Marcel to co-write the screenplay with Smith. 12 Marcel's drafts removed a subplot involving Travers and her son, and divided the story into a two-part narrative, the creative conflict between Travers and Walt Disney, and her dealings with her childhood issues, describing it as a story about the pain of a little girl who suffered, and the grown woman who allowed herself to let go. 13 Marcel's version, however, featured certain intellectual property rights of music and imagery which would be impossible to use without permission from the Walt Disney Company. There was always that elephant in the room, which is Disney. Colley recalled, "We knew Walt Disney was a key character in the film, and we wanted to use quite a bit of the music. We knew we'd eventually have to show Disney." In early 2010, Robert B. Sherman provided Owen with an advance copy of a salient chapter from his then upcoming book release, Moose, Chapters from My Life. The chapter entitled Tween Pavement and Stars contained characterizations and anecdotes, which proved seminal to Marcel's script rewrite, in particular, the anecdote about there not being the color red in London. 14:15 in July 2011. While attending the Ischia Film Festival, Owen met with Corky Hale, who offered to present the screenplay to Richard M. Sherman. 16, Sherman read the screenplay and gave the producers his support. 16 later that year, Marcel and Smith's screenplay was listed in Franklin Leonard's The Blacklist, voted by producers as one of the best screenplays that were not in production. 17. In November 2011, Walt Disney Pictures president of production, Sean Bailey, was informed by executive Tendo Naganda of Marcel's existing script. For 18, realizing that the screenplay included a depiction of the studio's namesake, Bailey conferred with Disney CEO Bob Iger 19 and Walt Disney Studios chairman Alan Horn, the latter of whom referred to the film as a brand deposit, 20, a term adopted from Steve Jobs. 21 together, the executives discussed the studio's potential choices. Purchase the script and shut the project down, put the film in turnaround, or co-produce the film themselves. With executive approval, Disney acquired the screenplay in February 2012 and joined the production with Owen, Colley, and Philip Stoyer as producers, and Christine Langan, Troy Lum, and Rue Mason, and Paul Tridgebitz serving as executive producers. 7. John Lee Hancock was hired to direct the film later that same month. 22. Iger subsequently contacted Tom Hanks to consider playing the role of Walt Disney, which would become the first ever focal depiction of Disney in a mainstream film. For Hanks accepted the role and made several visits to the Walt Disney Family Museum and interviewed some of Disney's former employees and family relatives, including his daughter Diane Disney Miller. 23-24. The film was subsequently dedicated to Disney Miller, who died shortly before it was released. 25. In April 2012, Emma Thompson entered final negotiations to star as P.L. Travers after the studio was unable to secure Meryl Streep for the part. 26. Thompson said that the role was the most difficult one that she has played, describing Travers as a woman of quite eye-watering complexity and contradiction. 27. She wrote a very good essay on sadness because she was, in fact, a very sad woman. She'd had a very rough childhood, the alcoholism of her father being part of it, and the attempted suicide of her mother being another part of it. I think that she spent her whole life in a state of fundamental inconsolability, and hence got a lot done. 28. Colin Farrell, Paul Giamatti, Jason Schwartzman, Bradley Whitford, B.J. Novak, and Ruth Wilson were cast in July 2012. 29-30-31-30 to I thought the script was a fair portrayal of Walt as a mogul, but also as an artist and a human being. But I still had concerns that it could be whittled away. I don't think this script could have been developed within the walls of Disney. It had to be developed outside. I'm not going to say there weren't discussions. But the movie we ended up with is the one that was on the page. John Lee Hancock, on his initial thoughts of Disney's involvement 16 with Disney's backing. The production team was given access to 36 hours of Travers' audio recordings of herself, the Shermans, and co-writer Don Grotti that were produced during the development of Mary Poppins. 33 in addition to letters written between Disney and Travers from the 1940s through the 1960s. 11-16 Richard M. Sherman also worked on the film as a music supervisor and shared his side of his experiences working with Travers on Mary Poppins. 33 initially. Hancock had reservations about Disney's involvement with the film, believing that the studio would edit the screenplay in their co-founder's favor. 30 for however. Marcel admitted that the studio specifically didn't want to come in and sanitize it or change Walt in any way. 11 Hancock elaborated. I was still worried that they might want to chip away at Walt a little bit. I thought the portrayal of Walt was fair and human, so I came in and they said, no, we like it. But still, every step of the way, I had my fist balled up behind my back ready to fight in case it happened, but it didn't. 35, although the filmmakers did not receive any creative interference from Disney regarding Walt Disney's depiction. The studio did request that they omit any on-screen inhalation of cigarettes 36, a decision that Hanks himself disagreed with, due to the company's policy of not directly depicting smoking in films released under the Walt Disney Pictures banner, and to avoid receiving an R rating from the Motion Picture Association. 37-38 instead. Disney is shown extinguishing a lit cigarette in one scene. stating that nobody can see him smoking due to the effect it would have on his image. Additionally, his notorious smoker's cough is heard off-screen several times throughout the film. 37 filming former animation building on the Walt Disney Studios lot, which served as a primary filming location for the film. The Building South entrance, which was used in establishing shots in the film, followed by interior scenes shot on a soundstage. Closing parenthesis. Principal photography began on September 19, 2012 in Los Angeles. 39. Although some scenes were originally planned to be shot in Queensland, Australia. 40. All filming, except for two establishing shots in London, took place in the Southern California area, including the Walt Disney Studios lot in Burbank, Disneyland Park in Anaheim, Big Sky Ranch in Simi Valley, the Los Angeles County Arboretum and Botanic Garden in Arcadia, Heritage Square Museum in Montecito Heights, Ontario International Airport in San Bernardino, Courthouse Square at Universal Studios, and the TCL Chinese Theater in Hollywood. 3941. The largest set built for the film was the interior of the Walt Disney Studios animation building, which production designer Michael Cornblyth referred to as a character in the story. 42. The exterior of the Beverly Hills Hotel and Disney's personal office were also recreated, with the Langham Huntington in Pasadena acting as an interior double for the Beverly Hills Hotel. 39. To ensure authenticity, Cornblyth used photographs and a furniture display from the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library as references for Disney's office. The set was also adorned with Disney's Personal Academy Awards, loaned from a Walt Disney World Resort exhibit. 1641-43 for the Disneyland sequences. Scenes were shot during the early morning with certain areas cordoned off during the parks operation, including the park's entrance courtyard, Main Street USA, Sleeping Beauty Castle, Fantasyland, and the King Arthur Carousel attraction. 40 for extra roles were filled by Disneyland Resort cast members. 45 in order for the park to be portrayed accurately in the story's time period. Cornblyth had the main street storefronts redressed to reflect their 1961 appearance. Post-1961 attractions were kept obstructed so they would not show up on camera. Although Pinocchio's Daring Journey, which didn't open until 1983, 22 years after which the film's time is set, can be spotted vaguely and blurred out in the background during the sequence on King Arthur's Carousel. 3946 to recreate the original film's premiere. Saving Mr. Banks also served as the gala presentation at the 2013 Napa Valley Film Festival on November 13th, 87, and was screened at the AARP Film Festival in Los Angeles on November 17th. 19 is Disney heavily campaigned Saving Mr. Banks for Academy Awards consideration. 19 on December 9th, 2013. The film was given an exclusive corporate premiere in the main theater of the Walt Disney Studios lot in Burbank. 88. The film was released theatrically in the United States on December 13th, 2013, and in general theatrical release on December 20th. 89. Home Media Walt Disney Studios Home Entertainment released Saving Mr. Banks on Blu-ray, DVD, and digital download on March 18, 2014. 90. The film debuted at No. 2 in Blu-ray and DVD sales in the United States according to Nielsen's Sales Chart 91. The home media release included 3 deleted scenes that were cut from the film. 90. To reception box office Saving Mr. Banks grossed $83.3 million in North America and 30 for $0.6 million in other countries for a worldwide total of $117.9 million against a budget of $35 million. 5. The film grossed $9.3 million in its opening weekend in the United States, finishing 5th at the box office behind The Hobbit, The Desolation of Smaug. $31.5 million, Anchorman 2. The Legend Continues, $26.2 million, Frozen, $19.6 million, and American Hustle, $19.1 million, 93. Critical Response and Review Aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes. 79% of 260 critics gave the film a positive review with an average rating of 7/10. The site's critical consensus reads, aggressively likable and sentimental to a fault. Saving Mr. Banks pays tribute to the Disney legacy with excellent performances and sweet, high-spirited charm. 94 Metacritic assigned the film a weighted average score of 65 out of 100 based on 46 critics, indicating generally favorable reviews. 95 audiences polled by CinemaScore gave the film an average grade of A on an A+ to F scale. 96-97 Leslie Felprin of The Hollywood Reporter praised the film as an affecting, if somewhat soft-soaped comedy drama elevated by excellent performances. The reporter wrote that Emma Thompson takes charge of the central role of P.L. Travers with an authority that makes you wonder how anybody else could ever have been considered. 98 Scott Founders of Variety wrote that the film has all the makings of an irresistible backstage tale, and it's been brought to the screen with a surplus of old-fashioned Disney showmanship, and that Tom Hanks's portrayal captured Walt Disney's folksy charisma and canny powers of persuasion, at once father, confessor, and the shrewdest of businessmen. Overall, he praised the film as very rich in its sense of creative people and their spirit of self-reinvention. 99 The Washington Post and Hornaday rated the film 3 out of 4 stars, writing, Saving Mr. Banks doesn't always straddle its stories and time periods with the utmost grace. But the film, which John Lee Hancock directed from a script by Kelly Marcel and Sue Smith, more than makes up for its occasionally unwieldy structure in telling a fascinating and ultimately deeply affecting story, along the way giving viewers tantalizing glimpses of the beloved 1960 for movie musical in both its creation and final form. 100 The New York Times A.O. Scott gave a positive review declaring the film as an embellished, titty-up, but nonetheless reasonably authentic glimpse of the Disney entertainment machine at work. 101 Mark Kermode, writing for The Observer, awarded the film 4 out of 5 stars, lauding Thompson's performance as impeccable, elaborating that Thompson dances her way through Travers' conflicting emotions, giving us a fully rounded portrait of a person who is hard to like, but impossible not to love. 100 to Michael Phillips of the Chicago Tribune felt similarly, writing, Thompson's the show. Each withering put down, every jaundiced utterance lands with a little ping. In regard to the screenplay, he wrote that screenwriters Kelly Marcel and Sue Smith treat everyone gently and with the utmost respect. 103 Peter Travers of Rolling Stone also gave the film 3 out of 4 stars and equally commended the performances of the cast. 100 for Alonso Duralde of Thurap described the film as a whimsical, moving, and occasionally insightful tale. Director John Lee Hancock luxuriates in the period detail of early 60s Disneyana. 105 Entertainment Weekly gave the film a B+ grade, explaining that the trick here is how perfectly Thompson and Hanks portray the gradual thaw in their characters. Frosty Alliance, empathizing with each other's equally miserable upbringings in a beautiful 3-hanky scene. Late in the film, 106 Kenneth Turan of the Los Angeles Times wrote that the film does not strictly hew to the historical record. where the eventual resolution of this conflict is concerned, but admitted that it is easy to accept this fictionalizing as part of the price to be paid for Thompson's engaging performance. 107 David Gritton of the Daily Telegraph described the confrontational interaction between Thompson and Hanks as terrific, singling out Thompson's bravura performance and calling the film itself smart, witty entertainment. 108 Kate Muir of the Times spoke highly of Thompson and Hanks's performances. 109 Joe Morgenstern of the Wall Street Journal, however, considered Colin Farrell to be the film's standout performance. 110 IndieWire's Ashley Clark wrote that the film is witty, well-crafted, and well-performed mainstream entertainment which, perhaps unavoidably, cleaves to a well-worn Disney template, stating that all problems, however psychologically deep-rooted, can be overcome. 111 Another staff writer labeled Thompson's performance as her best since Sense and Sensibility, and stated that she makes the Australian-born British transplant a curmudgeonly delight. 112 Peter Bradshaw of The Guardian enjoyed Hank's role as Disney, suggesting that, despite its brevity, the film would have been largely bland without it. 113 Jeffrey McNabb of The Independent gave the film a mixed review, writing, "On the one hand, Saving Mr. Banks, which was developed by BBC Films and has a British producer, is a probing, insightful character study with a very dark undertow. On the other, it is a cheery, upbeat marketing exercise in which the Disney organization is re-promoting one of its most popular film characters." 114 Mick LaSalle of the San Francisco Chronicle concluded that if the film were 100% false and yet felt true, that would be fine. But this has the self-conscious whiff, if not of mendacity, then of public relations. 115 American history lecturer John Wills praised the film's attention to detail, such as the inclusion of Travers' original recordings, but doubted that the interpersonal relations between Travers and Disney were as amicable as portrayed in the film. 116 Landon Palmer of Film School Rejects also described several moments where the film had a shrewd consumption of the company's own criticisms, only to later negate them and Disneyfy Travers as a character. 70 to a Desmine article. List of accolades received by Saving Mr. Banks. Saving Mr. Banks was nominated for awards and earned accolades from various organizations. The film was nominated in 5 categories at the 67th British Academy Film Awards. Best British Film, Best Actress in a Leading Role for Emma Thompson, Outstanding Debut by a British Writer, Director or Producer, Best Film Music, and Best Costume Design. 117 Several American film critics and pundits predicted that the film would be nominated for the Academy Award for Best Picture, and Thompson would be nominated for Best Actress. Disney heavily lobbied the film as such for its awards campaign. 118, 119, 120, 121. However, at the 86th Academy Awards, the film received only one nomination for Best Original Score, which it did not win. 120 to the film also received single nominations at the 71st Golden Globe Awards and 20th Screen Actors Guild Awards, where Thompson was nominated for Best Actress in a Motion Picture, Drama, and Outstanding Performance by a Female Actor in a Leading Role, respectively. 123, 124. Additionally, Thompson won both the Empire Award for Best Actress and the National Board of Review Award for Best Actress for her performance. While the film itself was selected by the National Board of Review as one of the year's top 10 films, 125-126. Saving Mr. Banks was named by the American Film Institute as one of the top 10 films of 2013. 127 is an American multinational mass media and entertainment conglomerate, headquartered at the Walt Disney Studios complex in Burbank, California. Disney was founded on October 16, 1923 as an animation studio by brothers Walt Disney and Roy Oliver Disney as Disney Brothers Cartoon Studio. It later operated under the names Walt Disney Studio and Walt Disney Productions before adopting its current name in 1986. In 1928, Disney established itself as a leader in the animation industry with the short film Steamboat Willie. The film used synchronized sound to become the first post-produced sound cartoon and popularized Mickey Mouse, for who became Disney's mascot and corporate icon. Not verified in body after becoming a success by the early 1940s, 5, 6, 7 Disney diversified into live-action films, television, and theme parks in the 1950s. However, following Walt Disney's death in 1966, the company's profits, especially in the animation sector, began to decline. In 1984, Disney's shareholders voted Michael Eisner as CEO, who led a reversal of the company's decline through a combination of international theme park expansion and the highly successful Disney Renaissance period of animation from 1989 to 1999. In 2005, under the new CEO Bob Iger, the company continued to expand into a major entertainment conglomerate with the acquisitions of Pixar in 2006, Marvel Entertainment in 2009, Lucasfilm in 2012, and 21st Century Fox in 2019. In 2020, Bob Chapek became the head of Disney after Iger's retirement. However, Chapek was ousted in 2022, and Iger was reinstated as CEO. The company's namesake film studio division includes Walt Disney Pictures, Walt Disney Animation Studios, Pixar, Marvel Studios, Lucasfilm, 20th Century Studios, 20th Century Animation, and Searchlight Pictures. Disney's other main business units include divisions operating the ABC television network, cable television networks such as Disney Channel, ESPN, Freeform, FX, and National Geographic, publishing, merchandising, music, and theater divisions, direct-to-consumer streaming services such as Disney Plus, ESPN, Hulu, and Hotstar, and Disney Experiences, which includes several theme parks, resort hotels, and cruise lines around the world. Disney is one of the biggest and best-known companies in the world. Citation needed. In 2023, it was ranked 87th on the 2023 Forbes Global 2000, 9 and 48th on the Fortune 500 list of biggest companies in the United States by revenue. 10 since its founding. The company has won 135 Academy Awards, 26 of which were awarded to Walt. The company has produced films, which have been featured on many lists of the greatest films of all time, and is one of the key players on the development of the theme park industry. The company has been public since 1940 and trades on the New York Stock Exchange NYSE, and has been a component of the Dow Jones Industrial Average since 1991. In August 2020, about 2/3 of the stock was owned by large financial institutions. The company celebrated its 100th anniversary on October 16, 2023. History for a chronological guide. See Timeline of the Walt Disney Company, 1923 to 1934. Founding, Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, Mickey Mouse. And Silly Symphony Publicity photo of Walt Disney from the Boy Scouts of America. Disney was given an award by them in 1946 Roy O. Disney 1893 to 1971, the American businessman. Partner and co-founder of the Walt Disney Company with his brother Walt Disney. This 1965 photograph shows Roy Disney and his brother with Florida's Governor W. Hayden Burns 191287 announcing plans to create a Disney theme park in the state. Walt Disney World opened in 1971, located just southwest of Orlando, Florida. The attraction grew to become the largest resort in the world, covering 47 square miles, 122 square kilometers, and encompassing for theme parks to water parks, a wilderness preserve, and numerous hotels. Walt Disney left, and his brother Roy O. Disney Wright co-founded the Disney Brothers Cartoon Studio in 1923, which later became the Walt Disney Company. In 1921, American animators Walt Disney and Iwerks founded Laugh-O-Gram Studio in Kansas City, Missouri. 11 Iwerks and Disney went on to create short films at the studio. The final one in 1923 was entitled Alice's Wonderland and depicted child actress Virginia Davis interacting with animated characters, while Laugh-O-Gram's shorts were popular in Kansas City. The studio went bankrupt in 1923 and Disney moved to Los Angeles to join his brother Roy O. Disney, who was recovering from tuberculosis. Shortly after Walt's move, New York film distributor Margaret J. Winkler purchased Alice's Wonderland, which began to gain popularity. Disney signed a contract with Winkler for $1,500 to create 6 series of Alice comedies, with an option for 2 more 6-episode series. 1314 Walt and Roy Disney founded Disney Brothers Cartoon Studio on October 16, 1923, to produce the films 15. In January 1926, the Disneys moved into a new studio on Hyperion Street, and the studio's name was changed to Walt Disney Studio 16. Black and White Rabbit in Pants Jumping Gone of Disney's first animated characters. Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, which Disney regained the rights to in 2006. The initial run of Oswald shorts by Disney have all entered the public domain as of January 1, 2024, after producing Alice films over the next 4 years. Winkler handed the role of distributing the studio's shorts to her husband, Charles Mintz. In 1927, Mintz asked for a new series, and Disney created his first series of fully animated shorts, starring a character named Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. 17, the series was produced by Winkler Pictures and distributed by Universal Pictures. The Walt Disney Studios completed 26 Oswald shorts, 18 in 1928. Disney and Mintz entered into a contract dispute, with Disney asking for a larger fee, while Mintz sought to reduce the price. Disney discovered Universal Pictures owned the intellectual property rights to Oswald, and Mintz threatened to produce the shorts without him if he did not accept the reduction in payment. 1819 Disney declined, and Mintz signed for Walt Disney Studios' primary animators to start his own studio. Iwerks was the only top animator to remain with the Disney Brothers. 20 Disney and Iwerks replaced Oswald with a mouse character originally named Mortimer Mouse, before Disney's wife urged him to change the name to Mickey Mouse. 2122 in May 1928, Mickey Mouse debuted in test screenings of the shorts Playing Crazy and The Gallopin' Gaucho. Later that year, the studio produced Steamboat Willie, its first sound film and third short in the Mickey Mouse series, which was made using synchronized sound, becoming the first post-produced sound cartoon. For the sound was created using Powers' Cinephone system, which used Lee D. Forrest's photofilm system. 23 Pat Powers Company distributed Steamboat Willie, which was an immediate hit. 21/20 for 25 in 1929. The company successfully re-released the two earlier films with synchronized sound. 26/27 after the release of Steamboat Willie at the Colony Theater in New York. Mickey Mouse became an immensely popular character. 27/21 Disney Brothers Studio made several cartoons featuring Mickey and other characters. 28. In August 1929, the company began making the Silly Symphony series with Columbia Pictures as the distributor, because the Disney brothers felt they were not receiving their share of profits. From Powers, 25 Powers ended his contract with iWorks, who later started his own studio. 29 Carl W. Stalling played an important role in starting the series and composed the music for early films but left the company after iWorks' departure. 30/31 in September, theater manager Harry Wooden requested permission to start a Mickey Mouse Club at his theater, the Fox Dome, to boost attendance. Disney agreed. But David E. Dow started the first such club at Elsinore Theater before Wooden could start his. On December 21st, the first meeting at Elsinore Theater was attended by around 1,200 children. 30/33 on July 24, 1930, Joseph Conley, president of King Features Syndicate, wrote to the Disney studio and asked the company to produce a Mickey Mouse comic strip. Production started in November, and samples were sent to King Features, 30 for on December 16, 1930. The Walt Disney Studios partnership was reorganized as a corporation, with the name Walt Disney Productions Limited, which had a merchandising division named Walt Disney Enterprises, and subsidiaries called Disney Film Recording Company Limited and Lyle Realty and Investment Company, the latter of which managed real estate holdings. Walt Disney and his wife held 60%, 6,000 shares of the company, and Roy Disney owned 40%. 35 excerpt of Steamboat Willie 1928, the first Mickey Mouse sound cartoon. The comic strip Mickey Mouse debuted on January 13, 1930, in New York Daily Mirror, and by 1931, the strip was published in 60 newspapers in the U.S. and in 20 other countries. 36 after realizing releasing merchandise based on the characters would generate more revenue. A man in New York offered Disney $300 for license to put Mickey Mouse on writing tablets he was manufacturing. Disney accepted, and Mickey Mouse became the first licensed character. 37/38 in 1933. Disney asked Kay Kamen, the owner of a Kansas City advertising firm, to run Disney's merchandising. Kamen agreed and transformed Disney's merchandising. Within a year, Kamen had 40 licenses for Mickey Mouse, and within 2 years, had made $35 million worth of sales. In 1934, Disney said he made more money from the merchandising of Mickey Mouse than from the characters. Films. 39/40, the Waterbury Clock Company created a Mickey Mouse watch, which became so popular it saved the company from bankruptcy during the Great Depression. During a promotional event at Macy's, 11,000 Mickey Mouse watches sold in one day. And within 2 years, 2.5 million watches were sold. 41/36/40, as Mickey Mouse become a heroic character rather than a mischievous one, Disney needed another character that could produce gags. 40 to Disney invited radio presenter Clarence Nash to the animation studio. Disney wanted to use Nash to play Donald Duck, a talking duck that would be the studio's new gag character. Donald Duck made his first appearance in 1934 in The Wise Little Hen, though he did not become popular as quickly as Mickey had. Donald Duck had a featured role in Donald and Pluto 1936. and was given his own series. 43 after a disagreement with Columbia Pictures about the silly Symphony cartoons. Disney signed a distribution contract with United Artists from 1930 to 1937 to distribute them. 44 in 1932. Disney signed an exclusive contract with Technicolor to produce cartoons in color until the end of 1935, beginning with the Silly Symphony Short Flowers and Trees 1932. 45. The film was the first full-color cartoon and won the Academy Award for Best Cartoon. 4 in 1933. The Three Little Pigs, another popular Silly Symphony short, was released and also won the Academy Award for Best Cartoon. 2846, the song from the film Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Wolf, which was composed by Frank Churchill, who wrote other Silly Symphonies songs, became popular and remained so throughout the 1930s and became one of the best-known Disney songs. 30 other Silly Symphonies films won the Best Cartoon Award from 1931 to 1939. Except for 1938, when another Disney film, Ferdinand and the Bull, won it. 1934 to 1949, Golden Age of Animation, Strike, and wartime Erath story building with green stripes surrounded by some trees. The original animation building at the Walt Disney Studios in Burbank, California, which they fully moved into in 1940 and 1934. Walt Disney announced a feature-length animated film, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. It would be the first cell animated feature, and the first animated feature produced in the U.S. Its novelty made it a risky venture. Roy tried to persuade Walt not to produce it, arguing it would bankrupt the studio. And while widely anticipated by the public, it was referred to by some critics as Disney's folly. 47. 48. Walt directed the animators to take a realistic approach, creating scenes as though they were live action. 49. While making the film, the company created the multiplane camera, consisting of pieces of glass upon which drawings were placed at different distances to create an illusion of depth in the backgrounds. 51. After United Artists attempted to attain future television rights to the Disney shorts, Walt signed a distribution contract with RKO Radio Pictures on March 2, 1936. 50. To Walt Disney Productions exceeded its original budget of $150,000 for Snow White by 10 times. Its production eventually cost the company $1.5 million. 47. Snow White took 3 years to make. Premiering on December 12, 1937, it was an immediate critical and commercial success, becoming the highest-grossing film up to that point, grossing $8 million, equivalent to $174,981,481 in 2024 dollars. After re-releases, it grossed a total of $998,440,000 in the U.S. adjusted for inflation. 54. Using the profits from Snow White, Disney financed the construction of a new 51-acre studio complex in Burbank, which the company fully moved into in 1940 and where the company is still headquartered. 56. In April 1940, Disney Productions had its initial public offering with the common stock remaining with Disney and his family. Disney did not want to go public, but the company needed the money. 57. Shortly before Snow White's release, work began on the company's next features, Pinocchio and Bambi. Pinocchio was released in February 1940, while Bambi was postponed. 50. Despite Pinocchio's critical acclaim, it won the Academy Awards for Best Song and Best Score and was lauded for groundbreaking achievements in animation. 58. The film performed poorly at the box office. due to World War II affecting the international box office. 5960. The company's third feature, Fantasia 1940, introduced groundbreaking advancements in cinema technology, chiefly Fantasound, an early surround sound system making it the first commercial film to be shown in stereo. However, Fantasia similarly performed poorly at the box office, 6160 to 63 in 1941. The company experienced a major setback when 300 of its 800 animators, led by one of the top animators, Art Babbitt, went on strike for 5 weeks for unionization and higher pay. Walt Disney publicly accused the strikers of being party to a communist conspiracy and fired many of them, including some of the studio's best. 60 for 65, Roy unsuccessfully attempted to persuade the company's main distributors to invest in the studio, which could no longer afford to offset production costs with employee layoffs. 66, the anthology film The Reluctant Dragon 1941 ran $100,000 short of its production cost, contributing to the studio's financial woes. Clarification needed. 67 man, dressed as a gaucho, with someone dressed as Donald Duckworth Wright dressed as a gaucho, next to Donald Duck in Argentina, while on the company's South American goodwill trip in 1941. While negotiations to end the strike were underway, Walt and studio animators embarked on a 12-week goodwill visit to South America, funded by the Office of the Coordinator of Inter-American Affairs. 68, during the trip, the animators began plotting films, taking inspiration from the local environments and music. 69, as a result of the strike, federal mediators compelled the studio to recognize the Screen Cartoonists Guild, and several animators left, leaving it with 694 employees. 70-65 to recover from their financial losses. Disney rushed into production the studio's fourth animated feature, Dumbo 1941, on a cheaper budget, which performed well at the box office, infusing the studio with much-needed cash. 58-71 after U.S. entry into World War II. Many of the company's animators were drafted into the Army. 70 to 500 United States Army soldiers occupied the studio for 8 months to protect a nearby Lockheed aircraft plant. While they were there, the soldiers fixed equipment in large sound stages and converted storage sheds into ammunition depots. 73, the United States Navy asked Disney to produce propaganda films to gain support for the war. And with the studio badly in need of profits, Disney agreed, signing a contract for 20 war-related shorts for $90,000. 74, most of the company's employees worked on the project, which spawned films such as Victory Through Air Power, and others which included some of the company's characters. 75-70 to an August 1942. Disney released its fifth feature film, Bambi, after 5 years in development, and performed poorly at the box office. 76 later, as products of the South American trip, Disney released the features Saludos Amigos 1942 and The Three Caballeros 1944. 70 to 77, this was a new strategy of releasing package films, collections of short cartoons grouped to make feature films. Both performed poorly. Disney released more package films through the rest of the decade, including Make Mine Music 1946, Fun and Fancy Free 1947, Melody Time 1948, and The Adventures of E-Chabit and Mr. Toad 1949, to try to recover from its financial losses. 72. Disney began producing less expensive live-action films mixed with animation, beginning with Song of the South 1946, which would become one of Disney's most controversial films. 78-79 as a result of its financial problems. Disney began re-releasing its feature films in 1944, 79, 80, and 1948. It began premiering the nature documentary series, True Life Adventures, which ran until 1960, winning 8 Academy Awards, 81, 82, and 1949. The Walt Disney Music Company was founded to help with profits for merchandising, 83, 1950 to 1967. Live-action films, television, Disneyland, and Walt Disney's death in the 1950s. Disney returned to producing full-length animated feature films, beginning with Cinderella 1950. Its first feature in 8 years, a critical and commercial success, Cinderella saved Disney after the financial pitfalls of the wartime era. It was its most financially successful film since Snow White, making $8 million in its first year. Walt began to reduce his involvement with animation, focusing his attention on the studio's increasingly diverse portfolio of projects, including live-action films, of which Treasure Island was the studio's first. Television and amusement parks, paid for 85. In 1950, the company made its first foray into television when NBC aired One Hour in Wonderland, a promotional program for Disney's next animated film, Alice in Wonderland 1951, and sponsored by Coca-Cola. Paid 6. Alice was financially unsuccessful, falling $1 million short of the production budget. 87. In February 1953. Disney's next animated film, Peter Pan, was released to financial success. 88. It was the last Disney film distributed by RKO after Disney ended its contract and created its own distribution company, Buena Vista Distribution. 89. Several men looking at plans together Walt Center showing the plans of Disneyland to officials from Orange County in December 1950 for according to Walt. He first had the idea of building an amusement park during a visit to Griffith Park with his daughters. He said he watched them ride a carousel and thought there should be some kind of amusement enterprise built where the parents and the children can have fun together. 1991, initially planning the construction of an 8-acre 3.2 hectares Mickey Mouse Park near the Burbank studio, Walt changed the planned amusement parks name to Disneylandia, then to Disneyland, 90 to a new company. When Enterprises, now Walt Disney Imagineering, was formed in 1952 to design and construct the park. 93, drawing inspiration from amusement parks in the U.S. and Europe. Walt approached the design of Disneyland with an emphasis on thematic storytelling and cleanliness. Innovative approaches for amusement parks of the time. 90 for 95, the plan to build the park in Burbank was abandoned when Walt realized 8 acres would not be enough to accomplish his vision. Disney acquired 160 acres, 65 hectares of orange groves in Anaheim, southeast of LA and neighboring Orange County, at $6,200 per acre to build the park. 96, construction began in July 1905 for DOT to finance the construction of Disneyland. Disney sold his home at Smoke Tree Ranch in Palm Springs, and the company promoted it with a television series of the same name aired on ABC. 97, the Disneyland television series, which would be the first in a long-running series of successful anthology television programs for the company, was a success and garnered over 50% of viewers in its time slot, along with praise from critics. 98, in August, Walt formed another company, Disneyland, Inc., to finance the park, whose construction costs totaled $17 million. 99, children wearing white shirts with their names on them and Mickey Mouse ears. Man dressed as Davy Crockett with a rifle in his hand, alongside 2 men in the background left to right cast for the Mickey Mouse Club, which over 10 million children would watch every day, and Fess Parker as Davy Crockett in the show of the same name. which sold 10 million Crockett coonskin caps and over 10 million records of its theme song in. October, with the success of Disneyland, ABC allowed Disney to produce the Mickey Mouse Club, a variety show for children. The show included a daily Disney cartoon, a children's newsreel, and a talent show. It was presented by a host, and talented children and adults called Mouseketeers and Mooseketeers, respectively. 100 after the first season, over 10 million children and 5 million adults watched it daily. And 2 million Mickey Mouse ears, which the cast wore, were sold. 101 in December 1954. The 5-part miniseries Davy Crockett premiered as part of Disneyland, starring Fess Barker. According to writer Neil Gabler, it became an overnight national sensation, selling 10 million Crockett coonskin caps. 100 to the show's theme song, The Ballad of Davy Crockett, became part of American pop culture, selling 10 million records. Los Angeles Times called it the greatest merchandising fad the world had ever seen. 103 for in June 1955. Disney's 15th animated film, Lady and the Tramp, was released and performed better at the box office than any other Disney film since Snow White. 105 Disneyland opened on July 17, 1955. It was a major media event, broadcast live on ABC with actors Art Linkletter, Bob Cummings, and Ronald Reagan hosting. It garnered over 90 million viewers, becoming the most watched live broadcast to that date. 106, while the park's opening day was disastrous, restaurants ran out of food. The Mark Twain riverboat began to sink, other rides malfunctioned, and the drinking fountains were not working in the 138 Celsius heat. 107.99, the park became a success with 657 visitors in its first week and 20,000 visitors a day in its first month. After its first year, 3.6 million people had visited, and after its second year, 4 million more guests came, making it more popular than the Grand Canyon and Yellowstone National Park. That year, the company earned a gross total of $24.5 million compared to the $11 million the previous year. 108. Two older men looking into the camera raised Sherman Brothers in 2002. They composed many Disney songs in the 1960s. Disney continued to delegate much of the animation work to the studio's top animators. Known as the 9 Old Men, the company produced an average of 5 films per year throughout the 1950s and 60s. 109. Animated features of this period included Sleeping Beauty 1959, 101 Dalmatians 1961, and The Sword in the Stone 1963. 110 Sleeping Beauty was a financial loss for the company, and at $6 million, had the highest production costs up to that point. 111 101 Dalmatians introduced an animation technique using the xerography process to electromagnetically transfer the drawings to animation cells, resulting in a transformed art style for the studio's animated films. 112 in 1956. The Sherman Brothers, Robert and Richard, were asked to produce a theme song for the television series Zorro. 113. The company hired them as exclusive staff songwriters, an arrangement that lasted 10 years. They wrote many songs for Disney's films and theme parks, and several were commercial hits. 114 115 in the late 1950s. Disney ventured into comedy with the live-action films The Shaggy Dog 1959, which became the highest-grossing film in the U.S. and Canada for Disney at over $9 million. 116 and The Absent-Minded Professor 1961, both starring Fred MacMurray. 117 teenage girl with blonde hair and a white dress looking into the camera black. And white photo of a young man looking into the camera left to right, Haley Mills. And Kurt Russell were two of Disney's most prominent child actors in the 1960s. Disney also made live-action films based on children's books including Pollyanna 1960 and Swiss Family Robinson 1960. Child actor Haley Mills starred in Pollyanna, for which she won an Academy Juvenile Award. Mills starred in 5 other Disney films, including a dual role as the twins in The Parrot Trap 1961. 119, another child actor, Kevin Corcoran, was prominent in many Disney live-action films, first appearing in a serial for the Mickey Mouse Club, where he would play a boy named Moochie. He worked alongside Mills in Pollyanna and starred in features such as Old Yeller 1957, Toby Tyler 1960, and Swiss Family Robinson 120 in 1964. The live-action animation musical film Mary Poppins was released to major commercial success and rapturous critical acclaim, becoming the year's highest-grossing film and winning 5 Academy Awards, including Best Actress for Julie Andrews as Poppins and Best Song for the Sherman Brothers, who also won Best Score for the film's Chim Chim Sherry. 122 black and white photo of a man posing and looking into the camera black. And white photo of a man looking into the camera left to right, Dean Jones, the figure who most represented Walt Disney Productions in the 1960s. 123 and Fred McMurray, who starred in Disney comedies in the 1960s throughout the 1960s. Dean Jones, whom The Guardian called the figure who most represented Walt Disney Productions in the 1960s, starred in 10 Disney films, including That Darn Cat, 1965, The Ugly Dachshund 1966, and The Love Bug 1968. 124 Disney's last child actor of the 1960s was Kurt Russell, who had signed a 10-year contract. 125 he featured in films such as The Computer Wore Tennis Shoes 1969, The Horse, in the Gray Flannel Suit 1968 alongside Dean Jones, The Barefoot Executive 1971, and The Strongest Man in the World 1975. 126 in late 1959. Walt had an idea to build another park in Palm Beach, Florida, called the City of Tomorrow, a city that would be full of technological improvements. 127 in 1964, the company chose land southwest of Orlando, Florida, to build the park and acquired 27,000 acres, 10,927 hectares. On November 15, 1965, Walt, along with Roy and Florida's Governor Hayden Burns, announced plans for a park called Disney World, which included Magic Kingdom, a larger version of Disneyland, and the City of Tomorrow at the Parks Center. 128. By 1967, the company had made expansions to Disneyland, and more rides were added in 1966 and 1967 at a cost of $20 million. 129 the new rides included Walt Disney's Enchanted Tiki Room, which was the first attraction to use audio animatronics, Walt Disney's Carousel of Progress, which debuted at the 1960 for New York World's Fair before moving to Disneyland in 1967, and Dumbo the Flying Elephant. 133 men at a table with microphones in front of them announcing something. Walt, Florida Governor W. Hayden Burns, and Roy announcing the plans for Disney World in November 1965. On November 20th, 1964, Walt sold Most of went enterprise to Walt Disney Productions for $3.8 million after being persuaded by Roy, who thought Walt having his own company would cause legal problems. Walt formed a new company called Retlaw to handle his personal business, primarily Disneyland Railroad and Disneyland Monorail. 131 when the company started looking for a sponsor for the project. Walt renamed the City of Tomorrow Experimental, Prototype Community of Tomorrow Epcot. 130 to Walt, who had been a heavy smoker since World War I, fell very sick and he died on December 15, 1966, age 65, of lung cancer at St. Joseph Hospital across the street from the studio. 133, 134, 1,967, 1,984. Roy O. Disney's leadership and death, Walt Disney World animation industry decline. And Touchstone Pictures in 1967, the last two films Walt had worked on were released. The animated film The Jungle Book, which was Disney's most successful film for the next 2 decades, and the live-action musical The Happiest Millionaire. 135, 136 after Walt's death, the company largely abandoned animation, but made several live-action films. 137, 138, its animation staff declined from 500 to 125 employees, with the company only hiring 21 people from 1970 to 1977. 139, Disney's first post-Walt animated film, The Aristocats, was released in 1970, according to Dave Kerr of Chicago Tribune. The absence of his Walt's hand is evident. 140 the following year, the anti-fascist musical Bedknobs and Broomsticks was released and won the Oscar for Best Special Visual Effects. 141 at the time of Walt's death, Roy was ready to retire, but wanted to keep Walt's legacy alive. He became the first CEO and chairman of the company. 140 to 143 in May 1967. Roy had legislation passed by Florida's legislatures to grant Disney World its own quasi-government agency in an area called Reedy Creek Improvement District. Roy changed Disney World's name to Walt Disney World to remind people it was Walt's dream. 140 for 145, Epcot became less the City of Tomorrow and more another amusement park. 146 after 18 months of construction at a cost of around $400 million. Walt Disney World's first park, the Magic Kingdom, along with Disney's Contemporary Resort and Disney's Polynesian Resort. 147 opened on October 1st. 1971 with 10,400 visitors, a parade with over 1,000 band members for 1,000 Disney entertainers, and a choir from the U.S. Army marched down Main Street. The icon of the park was the Cinderella Castle. On Thanksgiving Day, cars traveling to the Magic Kingdom caused traffic jams along interstate roads. 148, 149 on December 21, 1971, Roy died of cerebral hemorrhage at St. Joseph Hospital. 143, Don Tatum, a senior executive and former president of Disney, became the first non-Disney family member to become CEO and chairman. Card Walker, who had been with the company since 1938, became its president. 150, 151 by June 30th, 1973. Disney had over 23,000 employees and a gross revenue of $257,751. Zero over a 9-month period, compared to the year before when it made $220,026,000. 150 to in November. Disney released the animated film Robin Hood 1973. which became Disney's biggest international grossing movie at $18 million. 153 throughout the 1970s, Disney released live-action films such as the computer war tennis shoe sequel Now You See Him, Now You Don't. 154 the Love Bug sequels Herbie Rides Again 1974 and Herbie Goes to Monte Carlo 1977. 155 156 Escape to Witch Mountain 1975. 157 and Freaky Friday 1976. 158 in 1976. Card Walker became CEO of the company, with Tatum remaining chairman until 1980, when Walker replaced him. 140 to 151 in 1977. Roy E. Disney, Roy O. Disney's son and the only Disney working for the company, resigned as an executive because of disagreements with company decisions. 159 in 1977. Disney released the successful animated film The Rescuers, which grossed $48 million. 160 the live-action animated musical Pete's Dragon was released in 1977, grossing $16 million in the U.S. and Canada, but was a disappointment to the company. 161 162 in 1979. Disney's first PG-rated film and most expensive film to that point at $26 million. The Black Hole was released, showing Disney could use special effects. It grossed $35 million, a disappointment to the company, which thought it would be a hit like Star Wars 1977. The Black Hole was a response to other science fiction films of the era. 163 164 in September, 12 animators, which was over 15% of the department, resigned. Led by Don Bluth, they left because of a conflict with the training program and the atmosphere, and started their own company, Don Bluth Productions. 165 166 in 1981. Disney released Dumbo to VHS and Alice in Wonderland the following year, leading Disney to eventually release all its films on home media. 167 on July 24th. Walt Disney's World on Ice, a 2-year tour of ice shows featuring Disney charters, made its premiere at the Brendan Byrne Meadowlands Arena after Disney licensed its characters. 2 failed entertainment. 168 169 the same month, Disney's animated film The Fox and the Hound was released and became the highest-grossing animated film to that point, at $40 million. 170, it was the first film that did not involve Walt and the last major work done by Disney's 9 old men who were replaced with younger animators. 139. Castle painted blue and pink with the bottom layer being made of stone bricks blue, and White Castle with the bottom layer being made of stone bricks ginormous ball made of triangles. Left to right, Disneyland's Sleeping Beauty Castle, Magic Kingdoms, Cinderella Castle, and Epcot's Spaceship Earth are each park's main icon. As profits started to decline on October 1st. 1982, Epcot, then known as Epcot Center, opened as the second theme park in Walt Disney World, with around 10,000 people in attendance during the opening. 171 170 to the park cost over $900 million to construct, and consisted of the Future World Pavilion and World Showcase representing Mexico, China, Germany, Italy, America, Japan, France, the UK, and Canada. Morocco and Norway were added in 1984 and 1988, respectively. 171 173 the animation industry continued to decline and 69% of the company's profits were from its theme parks. In 1982, there were 12 million visitors to Walt Disney World, a figure That declined by 5% the following June. 171 on July 9, 1982, Disney released Tron, one of the first films to extensively use computer-generated imagery CGI. It was a big influence on other CGI movies, though it received mixed reviews. 174 in 1982. The company lost $27 million. 175 on April 15, 1983, Disney's first park outside the U.S. Tokyo Disneyland opened in Urayasu. 176 costing around $1.40 billion. Construction started in 1979 when Disney and the Oriental Land Company agreed to build a park together. Within its first 10 years, the park had over 140 million visitors. 177 after an investment of $100 million. On April 18th, Disney started a pay-to-watch cable television channel called Disney Channel, a 16 hours a day service showing Disney films, 12 programs, and to magazines shows for adults. Although it was expected to do well, the company lost $48 million after its first year, with around 916,000 subscribers. 179 in 1983. Walt's son-in-law Ron W. Miller, who had been president since 1978, became its CEO, and Raymond Watson became chairman. 140 to 180 Miller wanted the studio to produce more content for mature audiences. 181 and Disney-founded film distribution label Touchstone Pictures to produce movies geared toward adults and teenagers in 1984. 175 Splash 1984 was the first film released under the label, and a much-needed success, grossing over $6 million in its first week. 180 to Disney's first R-rated film Down and Out in Beverly Hills 1986 was released, and was another hit, grossing $60 million. 183 the following year. Disney's first PG-13 rated film Adventures in Babysitting was released. 184 in 1984. Saul Steinberg attempted to buy out the company, holding 11% of the stocks. He offered to buy 49% for $1.3 billion, or the entire company for $2.75 billion. Disney, which had less than $10 million, rejected Steinberg's offer and offered to buy all of his stock for $326 million. Steinberg agreed, and Disney paid it all with part of a $1.3 billion bank loan, putting the company $866 million in debt. 185 186 198 for 2005. Michael Eisner's leadership. The Disney Renaissance, merger and acquisitionsman in a tuxedo giving a speech. Michael Eisner replaced Ron Miller as CEO. In 1984, shareholders Roy Disney, Sid Bass, Lillian and Diane Disney, and Irwin L. Jacobs, who together owned about 36% of the shares, forced out CEO Miller and replaced him with Michael Eisner, former president of Paramount Pictures, and appointed Frank Wells as president. 187 Eisner's first act was to make it a major film studio, which at the time it was not considered. Eisner appointed Jeffrey Katzenberg as chairman and Roy Disney as head of animation. Eisner wanted to produce an animated film every 18 months rather than for years, as the company had been doing. To help with the film division, the company started making Saturday morning cartoons to create new Disney characters for merchandising, and produced films through Touchstone. Under Eisner, Disney became more involved with television, creating Touchstone Television and producing the television sitcom The Golden Girls, which was a hit. The company spent $15 million promoting its theme parks, raising visitor numbers by 10%. 188, 189 in 1984, Disney produced The Black Cauldron. Then the most expensive animated movie at $40 million. Their first animated film to feature computer-generated imagery and their first PG-rated animation because of its adult themes. The film was a box office failure, leading the company to move the animation department from the studio in Burbank to a warehouse in Glendale, California. 190 The Film Financing Partnership Silver Screen Partners II, which was organized in 1985, financed films for Disney with $193 million. In January 1987, Silver Screen Partners III began financing movies for Disney with $300 million raised by E.F. Hutton, the largest amount raised for a film financing limited partnership. 191 Silver Screen was also set up to finance Disney's studios. 192 in 1986. The company changed its name from Walt Disney Productions to the Walt Disney Company, stating the old name only referred to the film industry. 193 with Disney's animation industry declining. The animation department needed its next movie, The Great Mouse Detective, to be a success. It grossed $25 million at the box office, becoming a much-needed financial success. 194 to generate more revenue from merchandising. The company opened its first retail store, Disney Store in Glendale, in 1987. Because of its success, the company opened to more in California, and by 1990, it had 215 throughout the United States. 195, 196 in 1989. The company garnered $111 million in revenue and made a profit of $187 million. 197 in 1987. The company signed an agreement with the government of France to build a resort named Euro Disneyland in Paris. It would consist of two theme parks named Disneyland Park and Walt Disney Studios Park, a golf course, and 6 hotels. 198, 199 Hollywood Studios Park Icon, the Chinese Theatrine 1988. Disney's 27th animated film Oliver and Company was released the same day as that of former Disney animator Don Bluth's The Land Before Time. Oliver and Company outcompeted The Land Before Time, becoming the first animated film to gross over $100 million in its initial release, and the highest-grossing animated film in its initial run. 200 to 101 Disney became the box office leading Hollywood studio for the first time, with films such as Who Framed Roger Rabbit 1988, 3 Men and a Baby 1987, and Good Morning, Vietnam 1987. The company's gross revenue went from $165 million in 1983 to $876 million in 1987. And operating income went from $33 million in 1983 to plus $130 million in 1987. The studio's net income rose by 66%, along with a 26% growth in revenue. Los Angeles Times called Disney's recovery a real rarity in the corporate world. 200 to on May 1st. 1989, Disney opened Disney MGM Studios, its third amusement park at Walt Disney World, and later became Hollywood Studios. The new park demonstrated to visitors the movie-making process until 2008, when it was changed to make guests feel they are in movies. 203 following the opening of Disney MGM Studios. Disney opened the water park Typhoon Lagoon in June 1989. In 2022, it had 1.9 million visitors and was the most popular water park in the world. 200 for 205 also in 1989. Disney signed an agreement in principle to acquire the Jim Henson Company from its founder. The deal included Henson's programming library and Muppet characters excluding the Muppets created for Sesame Street, as well as Henson's personal creative services. Henson, however, died in May 1990 before the deal was completed, resulting in the company's terminating merger negotiations 206 to 107 to 108 on November 17, 1989. Disney released The Little Mermaid, which was the start of the Disney Renaissance, a period in which the company released hugely successful and critically acclaimed animated films. The Little Mermaid became the animated film with the highest gross from its initial run, and garnered $233 million at the box office. It won 2 Academy Awards, Best Original Score and Best Original Song for Under the Sea, 209 to 110 during the Disney Renaissance. Composer Alan Menken and lyricist Howard Ashman wrote several Disney songs until Ashman died in 1991. Together, they wrote 6 songs nominated for Academy Awards, with 2 winning songs, Under the Sea and Beauty and the Beast. 211 to 112 to produce music geared for the mainstream, including music for movie soundtracks. Disney founded the recording label Hollywood Records on January 1, 1990, 213 to 114. In September 1990, Disney arranged for financing of up to $200 million by a unit of Nomura Securities for Interscope films made for Disney. On October 23rd, Disney formed Touchwood Pacific Partners, which replaced the Silver Screen Partnership series as the company's movie studio's primary source of funding. 190 to Disney's first animated sequel, The Rescuers Down Under, was released on November 16, 1990, and created using computer animation production system CAPS. Digital software developed by Disney and Pixar, the computer division of Lucasfilm, becoming the first feature film to be entirely created digitally. 210 to 115, although the film struggled in the box office, grossing $47 million, it received positive reviews. 216 to 117 in 1991. Disney and Pixar agreed to a deal to make 3 films together, the first one being Toy Story. 218 Dow Jones and Company, wanting to replace 3 companies in its industrial average, chose to add Disney in May 1991, stating Disney reflects the importance of entertainment and leisure activities in the economy. 219 Disney's next animated film, Beauty and the Beast, was released on November 13, 1991, and grossed nearly $430 million. 220 to 121, it was the first animated film to win a Golden Globe for Best Picture, and it received 6 Academy Award nominations, becoming the first animation nominated for Best Picture. It won Best Score, Best Sound, and Best Song. 220 to the film was critically acclaimed, with some critics considering it to be the best Disney film. 223 to 124 to coincide with the 1990 release of The Mighty Ducks, Disney founded the National